Like at the end of the day, we steer our own ship. You know, as God is our leader, right? He helps us, to guides us. But at the end of the day, we got to steer that ship. If we don't steer it in the right direction, we're gonna go into the rocks.
Yeah, I used to have a bishop when my church in Queens. He used to say all the time, during every service of tithing, spend wisely and responsibly. Don't buy what you don't need. Don't spend what you cannot not afford to spend. Live beneath your means. That means a deal is never a deal if it does not factor into your budget.
Yes, 100%.
That was such wise counsel that sometimes we don't always adhere to, but at least it's planted in there in our minds that we have to have something for retirement. Welcome to another segment of the Bold Lounge. This is Ray Ramos. I have a very special topic today, but most importantly, I have a very special guest that's on, Mr. Jose Ramos, who is my nephew, who I respect and love. And, I thought this would be a perfect platform to not only introduce this topic, but introduce a man that's currently going through it. So today's segment, we're going to be talking about life after retirement. There's life, right? And before we go into it any further, let me introduce you to Jose Ramos. Jose, tell everybody about yourself.
How you doing? My name is Jose Ramos. Like Ray said, I'm his nephew, and I retired 2 years ago. And right now I am currently doing business as a tax preparer. I have my own business going, Serve Prep Go. It allows me to keep myself occupied. Topic is life after retirement. I have a life, and that's due to my ability to do these things.
Great. So before I go into the questions, Jose, where did you retire from?
I retired from the New York City Housing Authority. I did 40 years with the Housing Authority. I left at the top of my career was assistant director. So I was running the warehouse operations in Long Island City for, a good portion of my career.
Great. So you spent a long time with the New York City Housing Authority. And
Yes,
it
I did.
seems like you worked your way up all the way through the ranks, man. Congratulations on 40 years of retirement. That's a long time. When I started out as a New York City housing cop. And
Mm.
so, I know the inner workings of New York City Housing Authority. My uncle was a director for many years at the New York City Housing Department. So, New York City Housing holds a personal thing in my heart. So I want to hop right into it, right? We know you talked about life after retirement. There is life. Retirement can be a time, and I want everybody to know, time can be a time of hobbies, travel, learning new skills, volunteering, or even start a new career or business. Many retirees find that they have more time for activities they previously couldn't have time for. And so I don't want people to think of retirement as a death sentence. It's a
Exactly.
new life. So if I had to ask a question, the here will be, since retiring, what new hobbies or passions have you been pursuing?
So, one of the great parts about retirement was preparing for retirement. And in the process of preparing for retirement, I set my mind to doing the taxes. And, I had always been working with H&R Block on the side for many years. And when I retired, I decided to do it on my own. I also am a member of my local church, and in that process, I spend a lot more time there. I do a lot more outreaches with them. I'm more involved. I'm an usher, and I spend more time doing the things that God has allowed me to do. The abilities that He's given me, I'm trying to put them into practice.
So look at that, new opportunities, right? Retirement, 40 years, and you're not staying stagnant. You're going right back into things that you may not have had time for. Then we talk about, that was new opportunities. We go right into like shifting focus, right? And some retirees find that their sense of purpose shifts from their careers to other areas, such as family, community involvement, and personal growth. And Jose, have you found your focus now being retired, shifting focus to now more time with family and projects?
Yeah, the one good thing that I always did was I never substituted overtime for family. Like I wouldn't work crazy hours just because I wanted to be home. But being home doesn't mean spending time with family all the time. Since I retired, I was able to really focus in on being home and being with the family. I have currently 5 grandkids, 4 granddaughters, and 1 grandson who I love dearly. I see them on videos all the time, um, and I notice their growth. They're growing immensely. Spending time with them is key. I don't get to spend as much time because they're so far away. I have 3 in Chicago and 2 upstate who are teenagers now. The 2 girls are 14 and 15, so we we handling it.
Yeah, it's a lot to go around. You got to spend this.
The truth of the matter is, my son is handling it. That's his. I never had daughters. I only had sons. I have 3 sons, and I was blessed with 3 sons because I got a chance to show them certain things that we can do as men.
God has truly blessed you. Girls are
Yes,
different.
yes. Girls are
Girls
tough.
require a little bit more work.
Yeah, yeah, a lot more work. But the one thing that I noticed, about girls is that, they love their daddies. The sons become mama's boys. I'm a mama's boy, my sons are mama's boys. It's just the way it is. We do the best we can as men. One of the hardest thing, even before I retired, one of the hardest thing was to stay focused on being a good example.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. One of the things you mentioned, you said, you talked about the importance of planning, right? And while some retirees embrace the freedom of retirement, others find it helpful to create structure and routines to maintain a sense of purpose and avoid feeling aimless. And my question to you would be, do you find planning out what you're going to do being retired important?
Absolutely. Even before you retired, planning it out was what kept me from losing my mind, right? Like people are afraid to retire. And at some point, there was a little bit of fear about retirement. I've been doing this job for 40 years. I get up in the morning, I go to work. What am I going to do? Right. So the key was to plan, like, all right, have a strategy. What am I going to do? I'm going to get up in the morning, like if I'm going to work, not having to go to work, I'm going to, get into maybe some more Bible reading that I couldn't do because I was always in a rush. Maybe, the morning for me is a lot easier to think. So I'll get on, and because I have a tax business, I'll read up on some new tax laws. I'll do stuff constantly to keep myself going, right? Because the moment that it becomes a sit on the couch and do absolutely nothing for the whole day, that's when it ends, right? That's when everything that people were afraid of in retirement actually happens because you stay stagnant, you do nothing. So planning is key. Planning before you retire, planning while you're retired, and even, extending that plan. Where am I going to go? I want to go away. I want to get on a plane. I want to go get some sun. I want to get on the beach. Planning, always thinking, always doing stuff to better yourself, right? Because even vacations are a way for us to better ourselves, right? Because we get away and what is it called? It's
Impressed.
yes, absolutely. We depress, get out. I'm good to go now. Let's move, you know, and that's something that I've been doing a lot of.
I always enjoy going away. My wife always tells me I created a monster because I was that person that, worked and this, that, and that. And, if I took a vacation, I took a vacation. But if I didn't, I didn't. But
Uh,
um, getting me out of that mindset really did something for me. And I look forward to multiple trips, especially now being
Absolutely.
retired. I don't never want to stay home. I want to be out. And they say you don't want to be a couch potato. You don't want to sit
Yeah.
there because you wallow in the things that you should have did or could have did. But if you keep yourself moving forward, so social. Let's talk about social connections, right? Maintaining these social connections is crucial for the well-being of someone that's retirement or in retirement. This can involve staying in touch with work friends, joining clubs or groups, or volunteering, like you said. Since retiring, have you had more time to apply to church and family? And I think you kind of answered this question a little bit,
Mhm.
just specifically on that. let us know, and especially let us know the church that you go to.
Well, I attend Manhattan Grace Tabernacle. It's located on 107th and Lexington Avenue in New York. And yeah, I don't stay in touch with too many people from the job per se. I got a lot of flack from people from the job. So I stayed away from negative people. You know, even some of my old friends, you know, you have to break ties, right? It's about moving forward. It's always about moving forward and spending time with people that are like-minded, right? I want to be around people, not that they have to be retired, but they're thinking positive. They're moving in a direction to better their lives. I've come a long way, right? You're looking at a guy, you know, I'm going to be 63 years old, and you're looking at a gentleman that grew up in the hood. You know, like you said, the projects had a big part, you know, a big part in your heart. The NYCHA had a big part. Well, I grew up in NYCHA. Right. That's how I learned about all this stuff. And that helped me to look for people that were moving forward. So groups, as far as groups, my church groups, my men's ministry groups. Right now, I currently help to lead the men's ministry for discipleship. So I'm learning, right? Because we don't have it down packed. None of us have it all together. It's a process of learning. How can I better help my brother? How can I better help another young man coming up? And those are some of my best goals. Those are the goals that really hit home for me, right? Like the ministry of men, right? The building up of men so that they can be held accountable to one another and so that they can grow, not only in life, but in the things of the Lord, right? We want to teach this. This is not something that is just automatic. As men, we get caught in a lot of mixtures, and a lot of our own thinking gets involved in a lot of what we do. And sometimes we put ourselves in trouble like that.
That's right. And you know, leadership is growth. In order to
Absolutely.
be a good, effective leader, you have to always be seeking knowledge. You always have to be seeking growth. And in terms of, you know, allowing people into your space, you know, I tell people like this all the time. You go to the airport, everybody's going someplace, but not everybody's going where you're going,
Hmm.
right? Protect your boundaries. People that bring negativity in, those are people that you don't want to necessarily keep out. You know what I'm saying? You don't alienate them, but they're not allowed in your circle because they just bring negative energy. You know, I've been mentoring young men for over 20 years. Actually, I'm wearing the shirt today.
Nice.
But it's a discipleship is about paying it forward. It's about people hearing your story, how you transformed, and how you came out on the other side. And you're a person that people can resonate with. They can say, you know what, Jose, he's been through so I can empathize with him. I can hear what he's saying because we had the same thing. And then that leads me into, you know, we talk about our physical and mental health, right? Retirement can be a time, you know, to prioritize physical and mental health through exercise, hobbies, social activities. Like you said, not being a couch potato, just staying stagnant. But since retiring, are you focused on your physical and mental health?
Yes, as a matter of fact, you know, currently I attend or I have a session monthly with with a mental therapist, right? Where we could talk. That's my mental health. My physical health is I see the doctor on a regular basis. And I was diagnosed with diabetes and high blood pressure years ago. It's all under control. I do take medications, but I'm working on trying to help myself naturally. Like, yo, get in the gym, go do your workouts, do this. I haven't been able to work out. I've been stagnant on that for a little while. When I first retired, I was all in. I was going, I was doing it. And now I fell into a little bit of a rut, not depressing rut, right? Like I got it, right? I'll keep moving. I'll walk a lot. You know, I just stay active, right?
That's your workout right there.
Yeah.
Walking, that can be a workout. You just say every day I'm going to take a walk. You know, I see a therapist every week as well.
Mhm.
Our mental health because that's taboo in the African American Latino community. You know,
For
we
sure.
we rather look at it or talk to someone on the corner that doesn't know anything about mental health as opposed to going to a professional, right? We rather go to a santero to have somebody, crack open an egg and throw some bones on the floor and tell us our future and our mental health rather than going to actual professional, you
Yes.
know. And
Yes.
it's all a process. You take your time. You got your diabetes under control. Diabetes, just took my cousin. He never made it to 60 years old. It took him last May. Been a year now. But what I'm learning through my wife, who's a health and wellness coach, diabetes is not hereditary. It's what we eat. It's all the processed food that they feed us. It's not, we don't do like we used to do back in the day where you came home for a meal. We're kind of always on the move and we grab a little something here or there. So, I can't emphasize enough physical, but most importantly, the mental, because we all been through some stuff. You grew up in NYCHA, I grew up in the inner city, and it wasn't normal to be in a deep sleep and then all of a sudden you hear gunshots and you just roll out of bed and lay on the floor for a little while until it kind of subsides. That's not normal.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have to correct that. Now I get right into your wheelhouse, financial consideration, right? It's important to have a financial plan in place to ensure a comfortable retirement and avoid the financial stress, right? Some people, like you said, don't pre-plan. They just live paycheck to paycheck. And then once they retire, they're left with nothing to retire on. They're just barely making it. And that adds more to the physical and mental stress. The question I would ask you, I know you have a tax group business and assisting people with their financial planning. Have you done some financial planning for your own? And if so, how's it been important to you? And how is this important to retirees?
So right before I retired, maybe, I had been thinking about retirement for 2 years, right? It was getting to that point, like things were getting bad at the job. And I was looking at, I've got all this time on the books. I got all these years in. I need to retire. The first thing I did was look at all my credit cards. How can I lower it? Let's get them all down. I cleared out all my credit cards. All my credit cards were at zero balance when I retired. That was the first financial smart thing that I did, right? I needed to be clear that I know my pension, because as a city employee, I get a pension for the rest of my life, God willing, as long as I'm alive. So I knew that I had that. So I had to look at what I was getting, what I was currently getting, and I looked at the numbers and it was like, wait up, that's what I'm coming home with now. I'll be fine. Like, there's no stress here. So I cleared all my credit cards. Instead of retiring like with a lump sum of money, what I did was I stayed on payroll for a little while so that I could get used to one time a month having a paycheck, right? Because it changes now, right? Before we were getting paid every 2 weeks. Now we only getting paid once a month. Now you got to be a little bit wiser. Now you got to be a little bit more frugal. Now you got to be a lot more intent on what you're doing. If you don't need to do it, don't do it. So I stood on payroll for a little while. It extended my time on the job so that it gave me a few extra months for my pension. I cleared out all my credit cards and I learned to pay my bills the first and the end of the month, right? Because it kind of balances out. Some bills come at the end. So planning what bills are going to be coming in, what bills you could get rid of, what you can downsize, all those things were the smart thing to do. Don't go into retirement, owing $20,000 worth of credit card debt and having a pension, because it's not going to work. Your whole pension is going to go to your credit cards. The interest on your credit cards is what kills you. It's not even the amount that you owe. It's the interest. I know people that have lots of credit card debt, and it'll take them forever if they don't listen to some of the advice that I give them, right? I try to advise people all the time. This is what you need to do. Again, it all depends on you, right? Like at the end of the day, we steer our own ship, As God is our leader, right? He helps us, to guides us. But at the end of the day, we got to steer that ship. If we don't steer it in the right direction, we're going to go into the rocks.
Yeah, I used to have a bishop when my church in Queens. He used to say all the time during every service of tithing, spend wisely and responsibly. Don't buy what you don't need. Don't spend what you cannot afford to spend. Live beneath your means. That means a deal is never a deal if it does not factor into your budget.
Yes. 100%.
That was such wise counsel that sometimes we don't always adhere to, but at least it's planted in there in our minds that we have to have something for retirement. I'm blessed that as well that I can have a pension that allows me to pay my bills and that I can go on vacations. But also, you have to, in your retirement, still have to stay on top of some things that you want to get corrected financially. At church, tithing, biblical finance, how what that looks like, and how that factors into your responsibility to bring all your tithes into the storehouse, right? So
Yes.
that God can continue to pour out His blessings. And some people, they don't understand money, and so they just think that someone's always trying to just grab their finances. But it's all about routine. I'm still learning. Shakia and her dad can tell you all the time. I'm still trying to learn this stuff because there are bills, there's college loans for the kids, and all these things that have to get paid. But it, I'm in a position where I'm comfortable enough to pay everything and still have uh, nice nest egg left over. So that leads me into like finding meaning and purpose. Retirees can find meaning and purpose by pursuing activities that align with their values and interests, such as volunteering, pursuing hobbies again, and spending time with loved ones. I can't emphasize that enough that we have to spend time with our loved ones. After all, they're the ones that we do all the work for. But tell me a little bit more about your volunteerism.
So, the funny part is if we reverse a little bit, one of the things, even before I retired, was trying to find my purpose, even while working, right? Like the job was not my purpose. It's never been my purpose. It was just a means to continue to take care of my family. My purpose was to take care of my family. My purpose was to be the leader of my home, right? To be the man that took care of my kids so that kids could do what they got to do. And then they'll learn to do that with their children. I think that was some of the hardest parts, was trying to learn what that purpose was. And I learned it. And now what I do is, again, the men's ministry, I've always had a heart for that. I grew up running the streets and hanging out with the fellas and doing all kind of crazy stuff. And then, God found me. I didn't find God. God found me, and He pulled me in and said, "Hey, you need to come hang out with me. This is where it's at." And for a while, I always thought that church was about, these old guys telling us that we can't do anything anymore, right? Like, you just trying to stop me from having a good time. That's how I saw church as a kid. And then I became a man, and I struggled, and I went through a whole lot of stuff. And God brought me to a retreat, a men's retreat. And in that men's retreat, I discovered how much God wants me to do, and how much He loves me, and how much He admires that I can talk to men, back and forth. And He restored my marriage. I'm married. This year makes 43 years. In August 27th, I'll be married 43 years. And there was a time of separation. Again, worldly things come into the world. You can't think that it's all about you. But my purpose was to take care of my family. And when we separated, I didn't know that. And then I went to this men's retreat. I met with God, and He allowed me the privilege to be restored back to my family, back to my wife.
And God does that.
Yes.
Call it encounter. Jacob had an encounter. If we had to look at a story, Jacob was perfect. Jacob was a trickster. He was a mamau. He did a lot of crazy stuff. He stole his brother's inheritance. He did some really bad stuff. But God had to get Jacob into a place where he can have an encounter. And when God does that for us, and I tell men, I tell young boys all the time, that God will get your attention at some point. You determine where that encounter is going to happen. It may happen at a retreat. For me, it happened on the battlefield in Iraq. For some young men, it happens in the jail cell. God will get your attention, because when He does, I like to call it the 3 Ps, right? But before we get to the 3 Ps, God's got to give you a new identity. He's got to wash away the way you used to look at things, the way Jose used to look at things, the way Ray used to look at things. Look at the Apostle Paul, right? When he met Jesus on the road to Damascus, Jesus blinded him and sent him to a place in waiting until He can restore him. And when He restored Paul's sight, Paul saw things differently. So Paul saw more of what the gospel was all about. He understood that Jesus was a very integral and important part And he went on to always just worship and praise Jesus in all of his preaching and teaching. So, that's what happens. He gives us an identity. Then he gives you your purpose. That's the first P. We don't know what we are here to do until we have that encounter with God. Because, up until that, we kept moving, kept changing our address, and the package kept getting returned to sender. God keeps saying, man, I keep trying to deliver Jose his purpose, and he keeps moving. He's at another address now. I gotta find him again. But after he gives you your purpose, he gives you the provisions, the things that you will need. He gave you your faith. He gave you your church. He gave you the word of God. He gave you people that have surrounded you to help you along the way, right? But lastly, and this is the most important one, and sometimes where we slip up, he gives you the parameters, the rules. I gave you identity. I gave you purpose. I gave you provisions, but you have to follow these set of rules, right? Adam failed in that part. Adam had everything else. He gave him identity. He gave him purpose. He gave him the provisions, everything he needs. Just don't eat from this tree of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And he did.
And he did. And we have to realize these things that once God restores us and makes us anew, we have a responsibility. We have an accountability now. This has been some powerful stuff on, life after retirement and knowing that there is life. When we get to the last point, it's seeking support. Right. And it says, it's okay to seek support from friends, family, or professionals. If you're struggling with a transition to retirement, you have resources, you have a
Yes.
community. And my question to you is, in the Latino and African American communities, we find it hard to seek help with life's professional transitions, right? Because, it's kind of taboo in the Black and Latino communities to seek mental health or seek help in its entirety. We kind of lay back. We'd rather go to a friend that doesn't know anything about anything and ask them questions, or in the Latino community, go to a santero or santera and try to, crack the egg open and throw the bones and see what happens. We're more comfortable with that. But my question to you in the Latino and African American communities, right? How have you dealt with it, and have you sought support?
Yeah, well, the preparation entails a lot of different things, right? When you decide that you want to make this move into retirement, it's always good to seek help, not only for financial reasons, right? Because that's one of the things, but as well as therapy, right? I've been in therapy for a long time. It's helped me to understand my flaws, right? Because when you're in therapy, you're looking at you. You're not looking at who did it, who done it. For me, that's key. Having good people in your life is also essential. And when you say good people, people love to throw the word friend around. And, if you have real friends, it's probably a handful, right? Any more than a handful is too many, because real friends are going to tell you the truth. And the truth is, sometimes you're not right. Sometimes you are wrong. And those are the greatest people to have around you at that time. You don't want people that say, yes, sir. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And co-sign all your insanity, because you'll just run with it. So it's important to have that clear picture of who's in your life. Who can I go to? I remember growing up as a kid, I would talk to anybody. I didn't care because I didn't know them. So I would tell them all my problems and keep it moving. But now I think it's more imperative that you tell people what you're going through, because they can hold you accountable. They can hold you up. They can help move you forward in these situations that you go through.
And that's so interesting, because we have friends, so we have a circle, but the inner circle is where you really want people that are impactful. You don't want a yes man, all right?
Yep.
You want somebody that's really going to have those tough questions with you. They're going to hold you accountable, but it comes from a place of love. So
Yes.
we have a circle of friends, but the inner circle shouldn't be so large. It should be people that really pour into you and kind of walk alongside you to help you grow. And that's so important, man. I've been going to a therapist for years as well. And I found that being able to talk to someone that also is non-judgmental, is just going to listen That's the other thing. You want somebody that's going to listen and not talk and say, well, this is what you should do or give advice.
Yeah, or interrupt you in the middle of you talking. Happens all the time.
It happens all the time. I do life coaching. So I have to listen to the people that are talking to me because what I'm doing is taking them through a timeline from the beginning and where we're going to end up. And you have to, in order to gain the information you need, you have to listen. You have to just let it sink in. And the only time you talk back is when you're kind of reaffirming what they're telling you. You say, well, you're telling me you're having a tough time with retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other person gives you the acknowledgement that, that you're listening.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the good things about the therapist. Like my therapist is really good. He listens and he'll call me on my stuff, right? At the end of the day, again, you don't want somebody that's just going to, yeah, you're right. No, somebody's going to call you. You say, hold up, you spoke about this, blah, blah, blah. And he's really good like that. And that's what we need in our lives. Even during retirement, at the end of retirement, before you retire, you need that in order to move forward to general in life.
And that bodes well in everything. In your relationship, learning to be a good listener. I had to learn to be a good listener. I had to really learn, and I'm still working on that, to hear what my wife is actually telling me, what she's actually asking for. And that makes us better because we're communicating. As parents, our kids get to a point where they say, you're not listening to me. And to a certain extent, we as parents are guilty because we just learned what we were learned, what we were taught. Speak when you're spoken to. You don't be seen, and don't be heard.
Seen and not heard. Be seen and not heard.
Be seen and not heard. If you go over somebody's house, you better not say nothing. You better sit there. So these are the things that are embedded in us, and we become our parents. We think we're going to be the new innovative branch, but we don't, and find out when our kids are not talking to us, why they're not talking to us, because we don't listen. We cut them off. What do you mean you want to get a tattoo? What do you mean you want to go to a party? What do you mean, and we become judgmental. And so we can learn from our own mistakes that communication is key. But in essence, retirement is a new chapter in life. I want everybody to understand it with its own unique set of possibilities and challenges. By embracing these changes and actively pursuing a fulfilling life, we retirees can make the most out of this exciting new stage that we're on. We have to look at it as a new chapter. When you read a book, you can't wait to get to the next chapter so you can see what it entails, how it's going to, work out. In the Bible, we go to the Bible for the answers that we need so that as we walk through this new chapter, we're walking along with God and He's counseling us. I like to go into Proverbs because Proverbs I call the instruction manual of the Bible.
Absolutely.
It tells you from hanging out with gangs and all the way to how you treat your wife and how you're to seek wisdom and knowledge. So I like what you said, being intentional. So in this retirement season, guys, be intentional about what you want. Don't be afraid to step out. Just take one step at a time. Be encouraged. This is not the end of life. This is only the beginning. You've worked so hard. We worked so hard to get to this point. Now make the best and the most of it. And I guarantee you, the best is yet to come.
Amen. No doubt.